Good morning, friends. Welcome to my channel. My name's Justin. I play guitar on songs in Nashville, and I wanted to talk about how I get paid. How do session players get paid here in Nashville? It's a little more complicated than you might think. There's a few different ways that we get paid, and some of the rates that we are paid are set by the union. Some are set by us, by ourselves, and then we also make some royalties, and then there's another pile of money called special payments that we make a little bit of money from. But first, I want to talk about what my channel is about and what I'm gearing up to do. I started this just showing how I track on songs. And I started a few years ago, middle of the pandemic, and just set my iPad up and filmed myself overdubbing on tracks. I call it the overdub sessions. And basically I talk about the choices I make, the tones I dial in, why this works here, why I think this is appropriate, what the song needs, how to interpret what you're being told from the producer or artist or writer or whoever hired you. Just the other day I was playing on a song that I thought was really interesting. It was in the key of G, but it had a chord that was outside of the key, right? So I'm just going to show you what that was. If I remember it correctly, it was something like this. A little bit of country at the very end, right? So basically it's in the key of G. We're going from the 1 chord, G chord, to a 6 major, but it's not just major, it's a dominant 7, right? So that would be E, which in the key of G is normally minor, but we're going major with the 7. Not only are we doing that, we're making it over G sharp, okay? So that's first inversion. And that pulls really strong to that, A minor 7. So basically, the way I think, 1, 6, 7 over sharp 1, 2 minor 7, 5, 7, or 4 over 5, right? This is a C chord over D. C over D. In the key of G, that's 4 over 5. So what's really interesting is that you've got this sharp 1 in there, and you might be tempted to think of it as a flat 2. I say no. A flat is not the third of an E major chord or an E dominant 7th chord. G sharp is the major third of E, right? A flat is the diminished 4th of E. Chords are not built with diminished 4ths, they're built with thirds, okay? So inharmonically, those might be the same thing, might be the same fret or the same key on a piano. Just in my mind, I think in terms of chords, what are the triads or whatever other types of chords there are underneath what I'm playing. And so in that progression, you can see even in the chord shapes I'm playing, G, B, D, and I play the E and the G sharp together, and I keep those same notes. And then that resolves to So I'm just thinking in terms of all the chords, all chord pieces all over the neck, melodies in the top end, you know, and that's kind of my job, is to create creative things that are compelling, that sort of make you lean in a little bit, like what's going on there? That's really cool. Kind of catch your ear. I have a course coming out about revisiting the fundamentals of music and guitar playing in a way that is conducive to being creative. Okay, I'm calling it like Tools for the Creative Guitarist. I'll keep you updated. That'll be out soon. So let's talk about how I get paid for such things. So there's a few different ways. There are scale wages that the union has negotiated on our behalf. There are, we tend to call those sessions on the card. Is it on the card or is it off the card? The sessions fall into one of those two categories. And then, is it a live tracking session or is it a home overdub? Or sometimes it's a overdub at a different studio, you know? So there's different categories. First, the way that we work is basically a 10, 2, and 6 schedule, all right? So Monday through Friday, and sometimes Saturday, although I tend to say no to a lot of that stuff. Monday through Friday, my schedule looks like any combination of those 15 slots, right? 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 5 days a week. I don't work all 15 of those slots most weeks. Very rarely, actually. I don't want to. That's so weird, being in this position that I've worked so hard to get to, and now I'm like willingly turning things down. What is that? You know, but I have other commitments, other priorities to my family, and I'm just not willing to be a total stranger in my own house, you know? So there's a tension there, right? And I think that tension exists for most self-employed people, because the temptation is to pour everything into work and, hey, the sun's shining, let's make hay, right? That sort of thing. Make hay while the sun's shining. So sessions, 10, 2s, and 6s. Any combination of those Monday through Friday. And those sessions might be demo, limited pressing, master, special, low budget, and those are all the different union scales. And I'll show you on our union website what all the forms are and what those scales are here in just a minute. Non-union sessions. This is when you get asked to basically overdub from your own place. Or sometimes you're asked to come over to the producer's place and plug in there, bring a small rig. And most of those, unless they're for a label artist as well, those tend to be off the card, and you set your own rate for that. The tension that exists for those of us in town who do this is that our rate needs to be worth our time. It also needs to be competitive. There's sort of a general expectation of what producers and labels and artists and whatever can hire us for a 3-hour block of our time. And it just depends on the songs. I think most people are between $200 and $300 a song in town on their own time, okay? And you can contrast that with what we make on like a demo session that's on the card, and I'll get into that. Per song, the rate goes way down, and there are reasons for doing demos that go beyond just being paid. I think I put in a different video that I was answering the question of how do I become, you know, how do I make playing guitar or playing music a full-time gig. I think I put in in that video, I think the video is called How Do I Level Up. I put in that video that basically there are motivations for doing demo sessions beyond just being paid. Your career outside of doing demo sessions can exist largely dependent on demo sessions. Sometimes you go and play a session just to be in other people's faces. Sometimes you go so you can play with the band, meet all the writers who are going to come in, or the artist or whatever, and just hang out. Like, that's a big part of this job is the hang, you know? You can't be weird. You can't have any weird smells. You can't be totally distracted. Like, we're creating an environment in the studio that helps the artist feel comfortable, feel excited about their music, helps them think that they're getting something accomplished. Like, so we're not distracted. We're listening when we've got charts in hand, and we're listening to the work tape. We're not just talking the whole time. We do whatever we can to help that song be the best version of itself that it can be. And where was I going with that? Oh, yeah, so off-card stuff. There's an expectation of what it's going to cost, and I think everybody's around the $200 to $300 mark. So let's look at all the scales. Let's go to the union website here and check out what we're actually being paid. Some of it might surprise you, so let's do that now. Okay, we're on the Nashville Musicians website. This is nashvillemusicians.org, and we go to this recording tab right here and click on Scales, Forms, and Agreements. Okay, this is this is getting into the weeds of how we get paid here. You scroll down here, you got a bunch of links, all right? And the top one is the overview and time card. So if we click on time card, this is basically what musicians all sign. There we go, there it is. Look at that, AFM Local 257 time card. So you set your scale. Regular means that this is a master session, okay? We click on that. A special master is basically a 1.5 hour like overdub for one song or whatever. Then there's low budget, and there's specific criteria that they have to meet for low budget. Live and location, video promo, limited pressing. Limited pressing is a severely outdated scale. It's basically saying, like, I want to record a record, but I am hereby agreeing to not press this many copies of it, which allows them to pay you basically demo scale, but slightly more. Limited pressing needs to go away, I think. It doesn't make any sense how music is consumed, what it's doing on streaming platforms, how it's making money on our intellectual property. Limited pressing makes no sense for how that happens, okay? So if you are a session guy or girl, what you're signing is basically going to be in this world. There are some videotaping things, CMT, national, local, whatever. There's some radio and jingle stuff, but you're going to be playing masters, and those fall under regular, special, or low budget, or you're going to be doing limited pressing or demo. And then there's single song overdub, which I don't use very much. I don't think most people do, because we have our own rate set for that, and I will get to that later. So scroll down here. The company that's paying us will sign that there. Who's the session leader? Okay, every session has a leader. This is the musician that is basically the client's non-negotiable. They want to make sure that person's there. Leader makes double scale, okay? The leader writes charts. Sometimes they call the rest of the band. They're basically the middleman in terms of communication between the producer or artist and the rest of the band. So the leader has a lot of extra responsibilities. Contractor, that's like if there's a production assistant, whoever writes the contract, which is based on this time card. We put the date, the number of sessions. The company, say Sony is hiring us, well, we'd put Sony Music Publishing, and I know their representative, and I put her email there, her name here, her email here. What studio did we work at? Well, was it Front Stage, Backstage, Blackbird, Omni, RIP Omni, Station West, Sound Emporium, Addiction, East Iris, man, there's so many. And then what that studio address is. And then all the players. So our session one, basically this would be 10 to 1, 2 to 5, 6 to 9. And sometimes you've got all three. Sometimes you're doing 3 sessions. Leader signs here, put the last 4 of your social. We come over here to cartage. If I carry all my own gear, if I do my own cartage, I mark that box and I get $17 extra. If my cartage guy comes and sets up my entire A rig, which is my amp rack, my guitars in the vault, you know, speaker cab, big pedal board, guitar case, and a hydraulic drum throne with a back. That is my secret cartage weapon. Then I mark this box, and he bills $200 to $300 for most people. And then we check which session we worked. Sometimes there's 2 sessions in a day, and you'll see 2 bass players sign it, and like one did the morning and one did the afternoon, so they sign there. But basically, leader will sign however many happened. And then you put the song titles and which session they were on. And we don't really fill out length in minutes or whatever. So we turn this time card in, and then we get paid. I'm gonna go back. Then we get paid according to the scale. Let's say it was a master scale. Let's look at master recording scale. Master scale. This effective February this year, expires next year. So every session we have health and welfare. Health and welfare should be added to the scales listed below for each musician, contractor, orchestrator, arranger, and copyist for the first original service, and $22 for each additional service that day for the same project. So what that means is if one client calls me for a 10 and 2, I make $30 health and welfare on the 10 and $22 health and welfare on the 2. If I'm working for different clients at 10 and 2, then it's $30 each. Okay? Now, basic session scale, basic 3-hour, a 10-to-1 master. They say maximum of 15 minutes of recorded music. That could be 5 or 6 songs these days. Really, master sessions tend to be 1 song to 3 songs, all right? Side musician makes $474.07. Leader makes exactly double that. Plus the $30 for the first session and the $22 for the next, right? Special session scale, that's an hour and a half. Say you're doing an overdub on 1 song or 2 songs maybe. Side musician makes $312. Not quite half of what this is. It's more than half. Leader makes this. Every session has a leader. If you're the only musician on the session, you are by default the leader, okay? Now, there are 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. session scales. That used to be really common back in the day when they were just working 15 to 18 sessions a week, you know. That you got to pay more if you want somebody's creative juices flowing at 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. That sounds like a nightmare to me. I go to bed early and get up before 6 every day. So, whew. Then there's premium session, and some premium is like 150% of scale if you look. Double time, some clients still pay double scale. So basic scale, side musician makes what the leader made, and the leader's making $1,900 per session. That's great for master scale. So let's go back and look at some of these other scales. Demo, okay. Demo, now here, this is what demo means right here. Demonstration recording. This song is not to be used out in the world. We are not lending our intellectual property to this track for the purpose of this track making money out in the world or virtual world. They cannot be sold or mastered until full sound recording master scale is paid, contracts are executed, and proper signatory agreement is signed. Demo session, pension, 14.09% of the scale wage, which is this amount. 3-hour session scale, $156 for a sideman, $312 for a leader. So on a demo session, I make, as sideman, I make this $156 plus this $30. And if I carry my own gear, cartage, if I carry my own gear, like if you play harp, timpani, keys, or string bass, you get $35 for cartage. If you play accordion, tuba, drums, marimba, chimes, vibraphone, all amps, baritone sax, blah, 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 all that stuff, $17. So carrying my own amp, I get $17 added to that $156 plus 30. So that's $186 if Larry comes and sets up my rig, or add $17 to that, $203 if I carry my own amp. So it like on a one-off demo session, if the only thing I have that day is a 10-to-1 demo session and I'm not leading, if I want to clear $200, I've got to carry my own amp. It's almost worth it just to have, you know, gas money for the session. So demos, there's a huge range between doing a 3-hour demo session and a double scale master, right? Double scale master, sideman's making $948. Here on a demo, we're making $156. And again, there's that $30 for the first session and $22 for each additional. And then this will be put into the fund for us. 14.09% of these numbers will go into the fund for us. I'll tell you what, there's a scale here, last scale I want to talk about. This happens a lot. It's called limited pressing. And limited pressing is goofy. Limited pressing, you're basically saying, I will not make this amount of physical copies of this song. That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense at all. Limited pressing, here we go. Basic 3-hour scale. Side musician, 196.50, right? That is not much more than demo, is it? That's like $40 more than demo. It's demo plus 40 bucks. And so certain people have different names for limited pressing. They'll call it limited blessing, which I think is funny. Uncle Larry coined the term unlimited depressing, which I think is my favorite. So side musician, 196.50, leader, 393. And if you go a half hour overtime, we have scales for that as well. And again, first session, 30 bucks. So 196.50 plus 30 bucks is 226.50. And then again, there's the cartage rate down here, which I get $17 for carrying my amp. So 226.50 plus 17 bucks is 243.50. So I can make $243.50 on a limited pressing session as side musician, if I carry my own amp. Yeah, so one-off demos and limited pressing sessions aren't necessarily the most lucrative, but again, they keep you in people's faces. They keep you fresh. It's like a paid workout, you know? It keeps you in the community, I guess. That's what I want to say. But check out this limited pressing agreement. And this is funny how long this is taking to load when I'm on full screen. It's just like it goes gray. There we go. The parties agree that the sole purpose of this agreement is to establish rates and conditions for musicians employed in the production of sound recordings, tapes, discs, and DVDs that are captured in a live or studio environment, digital downloads and streams where the aggregate number of physical and or download units produced of a particular recording does not exceed 10,000 in the US or 3,000 in Canada. I can tell you, I work at limited pressing rate for things that get streamed far more than 10,000 times. And I think streaming is what makes this outdated. People don't download units. People aren't paying 99 cents for a song on iTunes. I think that this was revamped back in that era when it was like, well, I'll buy the one song for 99 cents or whatever. Which, you know, Vince Gill's famous statement, like, people can pay the same amount of money for my song as they pay for a fart app. Like, why? What's the motivation here? I think that's pretty funny. But anyway, this whole, you can go back and look through all of these, you know, and we get down into here very little. For the most part, what I'm working at is master, low budget, limited pressing, and demo. And that's really it. And that's how we get paid. So let's get back to the other ways that we get paid. Okay, so looking at all those scales and all those forms, yes, we sign a time card for every on-the-card session. That's what that means. Putting those together on the card with all the, like, indie off-the-card sessions, that's kind of how I piece together a living every month. And then in April and in August, we have two, like, bonuses, okay? There's AFMSAGAFTRA Fund in April, and that is a pile of money that exists for musicians on songs that have accrued royalties for non-artist, non-producers, right? That was the original intention of the fund. So if you've played on some songs where you didn't sign a union time card and they've made their way around different streaming platforms, you might want to check. You might have money sitting there waiting for you. They have a links for you to follow. AFMSAGAFTRAFund.com. Go there and there's a huge covered recordings list. There's also names of people that have played that they owe money to that they can't get in contact with. Some of them have passed, and so they're looking for beneficiary information. It's crazy. So go there and check it out. That check for players like myself, that can range anywhere from an entire month's worth of pay, which I think most of us, I think everybody here who plays sessions as their full-time gig and is playing on masters as well as doing overdubs from home and is fairly busy. I think everybody's making minimum 10 grand a month would be my guess. And there's probably people who are making close to twice that, 15 or more. So that AFM-SAGAFTRA fund check can be anywhere from that amount of money to like 4 or 5 times that, depending on how many covered recordings are out there making money for you, you know? And the slice of the royalties is very small. It really is. As an example, I have been paid a lot of money every year for a song where I was the only hired player. I have been paid very little for a song that was wildly more successful, but it was recorded multiple times with like 3 or 4 bands plus a string section. Those royalties, this tiny sliver of the royalty pie that's set aside for sidemen, gets split between however many sidemen there are. How big the song gets doesn't necessarily translate. There are songs on there that I've played on. You know, I've had like 14 or 15 number ones. I need to actually sit down and look at how many there are. That's on terrestrial radio. That's still a good barometer of how well a song is doing in streaming world and how much it's going to pay you on the royalty distribution every year. But it's not exact. It's not like a direct relationship. Some of them pay better than others, and that just depends on how many players there were, how much it's being streamed. You know, some songs, they are released to radio, they go up and hit number 1, and they disappear really quickly. And those don't pay a lot. You know, the ones that last longer tend to pay better. The ones that are streamed recurrently, you know, tend to pay for more years. All in all, that's great. We're being paid for our intellectual property just like songwriters are, and artists and producers. There's a back-end motivation for getting into this line of work. And I don't think it's necessarily life-changing money, but it really is helpful, you know. It's really, really helpful and nice to be taken care of when you work yourself to a certain level. So, last way that we get paid in this town is special payments. And that's very similar to the royalty distribution in April, but it's based on the number of master sessions you've done versus how many master sessions happened, and it's backdated a handful of years or whatever. I haven't like looked into exactly how everything's figured up on that end, but that ends up being another nice check, you know? And by nice check, I mean, I'm just trying to think of what it has been over the span of my career. It's been different every year, just like the royalties. It could be a month of income or 4 or 5 months of income, you know? So with all of that put together, I think it's fairly reasonable to say session players in Nashville, you know, if you had told me that I would clear 6 figures when I was in middle school or high school, I would have been like, awesome. That's amazing. And now I'm just kind of like, yeah, okay, so I'm paying my bills and not going into debt. It's like I'm not really, I don't know. Like I think bare minimum session players are clearing at least 150. And then you can get a lot higher than that. Back in the 90s, they used to clear 300 to 500 grand, depending on if you were like the guy playing on all the records or not. So it's different now. I think it's more blue collar. It's more of a, you know, it's akin to being a plumber. It's like skilled labor, right? You're paying, or being a photographer, you know, except there's a union involved. You're being compensated for the thousands of hours that you work to hone your craft. And you're doing jobs that people without your very specialized set of skills cannot do. I hope you all have a great day. I'll talk to you later.